Hey everyone, my name is David Dunbar, or the theme park evangelist. So I did attempt to do a recorded YouTube video back last Friday. If I'm not mistaken, or it might have been last Thursday, something like that. I'm very sure it was last Thursday because, but I don't even remember anymore. Anyway, the point is, I had tried to do a live, or sorry, not a live video, but a recorded YouTube video regarding um, being hired by Answers in Genesis. Oh, my brother just came up.
Did you find Marley?
No. Yeah, I tried to do a recorded video regarding getting hired by Answers in Genesis, and then I also wanted to discuss how I felt about going to Walt Disney World during a pandemic. And for whatever odd reason, the video did not save properly. And I tried to watch it and it said that it was unplayable. And I was like, okay, that's interesting. And if you are watching my live stream, um, feel free to message me in the live chat to your right. I am able to respond at any given time. So, sorry, stupid piece of hair. But yeah, I'm gonna start with talking about how last Wednesday felt, or to me, something I didn't really get to discuss too much last Wednesday. Why while I was at the Ark Encounter, due to the fact that I was so emotional at the time, and then also because of the fact that I had a security guard that was watching me, making sure I didn't try to sneak into the Ark Encounter afterwards. So that's why I would like to discuss that now. And I had already tried to discuss it before, but unfortunately, that did not go off very well. And then, of course, afterwards, I will discuss um, how I feel about going to Walt Disney World, which actually I will be going this Saturday because this is vacation week this week. So, yes, very, very excited. I just don't want to show it too much right now because of the fact that I'm not the only one here. But anyway, so right after you guys saw me go into that giant room where they had the Joy concert, where was he?
Under your bed.
Okay, then that's an interesting place for him. Right after I went to that giant room where they had the Joy concert back in December, I went immediately to the Answers in Genesis job fair registration, and I let them know that I had applied for a job with them back about a month ago while I was on a 2 week quarantine due to my roommate having COVID, which I, did that YouTube video on. And of course, I did not mention, you know, what led me to do it. I was thinking to myself, well, since I got all this free time, why not be productive? Well, the first week I was very productive, and they were like, well, why don't you head over to the HR table right over to your right? So I went on down, and they were easily able to find me in their system within like a few seconds. And they were like, oh yeah, here you are. Well, why don't you go sit over there in the middle, and we'll call you when we're ready. Well, my dad's manager knew I was coming, so he found me, grabbed me for the interview, even though I did not know he was coming to take me in for the job interview at that time. And at first, I was thinking to myself, well, maybe he just wants to talk to me and see how I'm doing, all that kind of fun stuff. So, I'm sitting there with him, and I was like, well, I guess maybe he just wants to sit there and talk to me, and then it turned into a job interview. I was like, well, maybe it was a job interview the whole time. And we went through the whole entire application or whatever. And I was really surprised when he said, "You really interest me, David. I would like to hire you." And I never cry during a job interview. That was the first time in my life I have ever cried during a job interview. I already got a like. That's awesome. I guess Daniel Hutto is watching, a friend of mine from church. More like a good friend, you could say. But anyway, so, I was just so emotional, and I was in shock for about a couple of days before reality finally hit me that this was actually real. This was not some fantasy I had dreamed or whatever. And it's hard to believe, I will be working for the Ark Encounter in Williamstown, Kentucky. And this is going to happen right after I get back from Florida. So I have the whole vacation to look forward to. And then I get to come back and I get to do orientation at the Ark Encounter. So you guys will definitely hear more about the Ark Encounter for sure as the year goes on, especially since, there's so much going on at the Ark Encounter all the time. And more so this year because of the fact that they didn't really get to do anything last year due to the pandemic. So, I mean, of course, there's still a pandemic going on, which is why I want to talk about Walt Disney World. But here, it seems like things have gotten better. But unfortunately, Biden wants to keep attacking Florida, which is why they're making Florida look worse than it actually is. And honestly, you won't really know, at least watching my YouTube channel, how Central Florida or even Florida in general is doing until I get down there and you get to talk to some of my conservative friends that live in Florida, and then you'll know the real story. So, when I'm doing some like at home vlogs, even though it's not even my home, at least in TJ's house, you'll know 100% what is actually going on. I will try to find a chance to get Kay involved too, so you guys can also hear from her as well, because I know she would like to say something, and I'll try to get Vinia's input here and there whenever I can as well, because she also lives in Florida. So anyway, let's get into the main discussion now. Now that you guys heard how everything went last Wednesday. So, as you guys remember, the last time I went to Walt Disney World was actually at this time, around this time anyway, of 2020. So there was, a pandemic that was going on, granted, but it wasn't in, you know, the nation, so to speak, yet. I think it had gone into New York, and that was about as far as it went at the time. Once again, if you want to message me in my live chat, you are more than welcome to, and I will gladly respond. Not necessarily typing, I will respond by answering a question verbally out loud. So, yes, I was at Walt Disney World last year when the pandemic had first entered the country. And it was not in Florida yet at the time, nor was it in my state at the time, Kentucky. So I got on my plane. Well, at first, I went to the airport. I got dropped off. It was very quiet. I'm not sure why it was so quiet at the airport at the time. And, I didn't have to wear a mask the entire time I was at the airport. Flight got delayed by a little bit. Not sure why. Guess it had something to do with the weather in the area. Then I got on the plane. Was a little squished in the plane, but we flew down. We actually got to Orlando a little early, and walking around Orlando International Airport, you would think that there was not going to be any major issues that was going to go on that year. Notice that they had the entire airport redecorated or whatever, at least that part of it, for Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, because they were like really hyping it. I'm sure it's still that way right now. And all I could think about what the time was, man, I would love to go see Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. It wasn't in my budget that time. And also, because of the no pandemic that was going on at the time, there was no stimulus checks or anything like that. So I was literally relying on my money, and I wasn't making, more than 40 hours a week at Myra at the time. But ever since the pandemic has happened, I've noticed my hours have increased. Excuse me, and my pay has increased twice since the pandemic, which is crazy. And they were also doing like extra money for a couple of months because things were so crazy at the time. But you have to think this would happen after I came back from Florida. So I went down and, I didn't have a lot of money. I did get quite a bit back from the government last year, but I just didn't have the, I mean, otherwise, I didn't make that much from Meyer to necessarily say I could go all out. Um, I also didn't have credit cards back then to help me out, and if need be. And also, I only had 2 paydays off. And yet, I was still willing to take that risk of going down there. And that's also what hurt me as well, versus now I have 5 of them. So I'm definitely all set. And the first day I went to Walt Disney World was on a Wednesday. So we drove in to Magic Kingdom first, if I'm not mistaken. And the very first thing we ended up doing was the People Mover. Now, all we were able to do, at that time, or well, when we first got there, I should say, the park was busy. People, it was very congested, and the People Mover was surprisingly open back then. And when we first got on the People Mover, I did notice that they were going full speed ahead on Tron. Things have changed, since then because of the pandemic, and Disney is just not making the money they used to. So, all I could think of was like, man, I'm so excited for Tron. I really wanted to come to Walt Disney World again the following year in October to go and see it in person for the 50th. And now they're saying that it's not going to happen, which is crazy. And, I was just walking around Walt Disney World, and, back then it was so easy to park hop. There was one day we went to Disney Springs, and TJ and I decided, well, we're going to go and do the Disney Skyliner. And this says a lot about Walt Disney World back then versus now. When we were riding the Skyliner over Hollywood Studios, I noticed the parking lot was crammed full, and they were still trying to pile cars in. The park was probably at about 60,000 people that day. And for Hollywood Studios, normally that's completely normal. And that would be about their capacity right there, about 60, 70,000 people is how much that park can hold without the restrictions in place. And I just kept thinking at the time, there's no way I'm ever going to get to Hollywood Studios. If, the pandemic didn't happen, I seriously doubt that I would still be able to go to Hollywood Studios. And the reason why is because people were literally booking flights and hotel rooms and all that fun stuff just so they could go see Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. Disney was making bank back then because of Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. So that's why Disney knew they could afford to make all these investments in other things. And then that pandemic happened and took things turn for the worst. And as I said, I was walking around Walt Disney World. I didn't have to wear a mask. Lines were completely normal. You could use a fast pass back then. I got on my Disney Experience and I made some fast passes. I think I even used the kiosk that day as well, because back then you could still use the kiosks. I believe I went to Epcot right around the time they were starting construction on everything. That was about the most abnormal thing about the whole entire day. And of course, back then the parks were open later, so we were able to go to Animal Kingdom late at night and hop on a Flight of Passage literally at the last minute before they closed the park for the night. So that was all stuff that we could do back then that you just wouldn't see anymore. It's kind of weird seeing the theme parks closing so early. And a year ago, I didn't stop and think about being close to someone, and especially in a theme park, and needing to get my temperature checked. Even going to Disney Springs. Normally, when I go to Disney Springs, I just park in the orange or lime garage, and I take the escalator down, or I walk down the stairs, and I just walk around, go look in some of the stores. I go to Gerda Deli and get my chocolate, and that's just what I did back then. And the fact that is not going to happen anymore is just like, it's like, wow. I'm going to see Walt Disney World from a completely different perspective. And Saturday is going to be the very first day I'm going to witness it. And I can warn you guys right now in advance, it's going to be a wake up call, because I've never seen Walt Disney World like this other than YouTube. And even that's just an idea of what I'm to expect. And I had told myself after that trip, I'm probably not going to go back until next year. Hopefully, things will be better by then. Maybe they won't require the masks anymore. Well, here we are a year later, and they're still requiring masks. Things are starting to get back to normal, but it's just taking a while, taking a lot longer than I anticipated. And yes, I'm doing financially better, which is why I could afford to do a little bit more with this trip. There are a few things that I'm keeping a secret as a surprise to both you guys and my brother, more so my brother, that will hopefully make the trip even better. I am very much so looking forward to leaving this Friday morning and seeing how everything goes. I can guarantee you guys that you'll have a better idea of how I feel about going to Walt Disney World during a pandemic after Saturday evening, that's for sure, if not Saturday night, because that will be the very first chance I get to see what Walt Disney World is like with all the mask wearing, and the 6 foot rule, because the capacity at Walt Disney World has not been the same since last year. When I went to Universal a year ago, I waited 2.5 hours with TJ for Hagrid's Magical Creatures Motorbike Adventures, or just Hagrid's for short. But that was around the time it was still very new, and Universal was not, of course, in the part of the shutdown either at the time, nor were they even considering it. So everybody was still wanting to come to Universal as well to come see what the Hagrid's ride was like. And here we are a year later. None of the rides at Universal or Disney, for that matter, are getting the lines that like they used to. And then what's even funnier is, let's just say this for example. So let's say I want to go to Hollywood Studios like I'm doing next Monday, and I want to go on Tower of Terror. Well, back then, a 2 hour wait would have zigzagged around their normal queue, and they would have put out the extension queue, or open up the extension queue in their normal queue area to get as many people together as possible. And when I worked at Alien Swirling Saucers, for example, we always had to say something like, please fill in all available space, keep your party together, blah, 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 into the intercom. Well, we don't really want to say that anymore. And in fact, normally, if you were to see a line for like Tower of Terror out over by Phantasmic, like that's where the line would end. Like back then, like a year ago, for example, that's because the line would probably be like 4 or 5 hours long. Nowadays, if you were to see that line out that far, normally our minds would be thinking, oh, heck no, there's no way I'm going to be waiting that long. It's probably a 4 or 5 hour line. But yet you walk all the way up there and you see how long the line actually is, which is only an hour, maybe even less. And then you scratch your head and you think to yourself, how is this even possible? Of course, you assuming you don't know anything about Disney and their 6 foot rule. And that's the reason why, because Disney is literally making sure that you're exactly 6 feet away from the person in front of you at all times, unless, of course, you're in a group. Then you have to keep your group on that line, and then you have to literally follow the line. So I'm kind of curious to see how that's going to be. And there's only one virtual queue in all of Walt Disney World, and that's for Rise of the Resistance. I have heard that it is slightly easier to get in the ride now, or be part of the ride. TJ and I already agreed that we would be up before 7 a.m. next Monday to ensure that we get to be part of the morning ride, because there's a morning boarding group that they do now. Then back then, you literally had to be at the park before the park opened, and you had to be on your app and like checking yourself in, like, I'm here, and you only had like what, 60 seconds before everything was gone. So you had to be on top of it, versus nowadays they're allowing you to be home or wherever, as long as you're at your home and you get on the app at exactly 7 in the morning and you try joining a boarding group, there's a chance that you might be able to join a boarding group. And then you have another chance at 1 o'clock. And that was something they never did a year ago because of the high popularity for the ride. If you guys remember correctly, the day I went on the Disney Skyliner, I bumped into that group of people that literally had just got off of the Rise of the Resistance ride, and they absolutely loved it. So I'm praying and hoping that my brother and I and TJ will be able to ride Rise of the Resistance next Monday, because I would love to see it for myself and to tell you guys about it. I'm prepared to be mind blown, that's for sure. But it's just too funny. I had to wait until a pandemic hit to be able to go to Hollywood Studios in just general, because I can guarantee you guys, I would never have been able to go this year if it wasn't for the pandemic. And I'm unfortunately afraid to say I will not be able to go to Magic Kingdom on October 1st, because all the park reservations are already gone. And as of right now, Walt Disney World is planning on using the park reservation system for the foreseeable future. So that's very discouraging, especially when you don't have the money quite yet to necessarily buy another Disney ticket, but you do have money to go on the vacation. So I don't know how that works out. And I just spent a couple of $100 today on car repairs. So I wasn't about to go turn around and spend more money on another Disney ticket. So kind of reason why I waited too. I was going to wait until the third stimulus check went out that Biden approved, but I guess not anymore. I guess I don't have to worry about buying any more Disney tickets for the rest of the year as of right now, but we will see what happens. But otherwise, that's pretty much everything I wanted to say as far as the pandemic. I mean, there's only so much that one can say about what they believe is going to happen going to the parks um, before a pandemic, when they've never gone to Walt Disney World before, during the pandemic before. So this will be my first time going. I have been, as I said, living in Northern Kentucky this entire time. And this is my first time being in Florida in an entire year. And this is my brother's first time being in Central Florida in 2 years ish, maybe a year and a half or so. So I think this will be a wake up call to both of us if it comes down to it. And it's hard to say who is going to affect more. And very interested to see what's going to happen. But all right, guys, I'm going to do another YouTube video. I'm going to do a Life as a Working Disney cast member video. And I'm going to try to do another YouTube video tomorrow before I go to work. And that will probably be the last YouTube video I do before I'm in Florida Friday night. Because that's the plan, is to be at TJ's house by Friday night and make sure my brother gets dropped off at his friend Trevor's house first. So I will see you guys in the next vlog. And always remember, you can do all things through Christ strengthens you. Have a great day. Peace out. Oh, by the way, before I officially end, if I didn't say it earlier, this shirt I'm wearing right now I got for free for attending the AIG job fair and getting hired on top of that. And excuse me, only people who got hired that day got this shirt, and it says, I am part, sorry, if I can read it correctly. Yeah. I am part of something bigger, if I'm not mistaken, if I can read that correctly. Or I'm a part of something bigger. Yeah. Anyway, I'll see you guys in the next vlog.